Okay, you are live and rocking.
Um, I think it's important, and I liked your chart the other day that I think we need to come up with our own titles. I think we need to stay away from the crocodile primitive brain. I think we need to come up with our own names for the top of those groups. And as we do that, we'll be able to throw more things into our own name than just this is that kind of mind or that kind of mind or that kind of mind. Because all this is just thinking, you know. And I think you're very good at writing that stuff, and what you wrote was brilliant and everything. And I think part of the big deal that thing was about is we're talking about day management, energy management. So how do you watch your day, and then how do you learn to find out where your energy comes from and how it gets used in your day? You know, good day, bad day, happy day, sad day. A way of thinking about day management is through your archetypes. In other words, when you put your feet on the floor in the morning, do you want to have an interesting day? Do you want to have a fun day? Do you want to have a productive day? Or are you looking to be inspired in this day? Okay? Now, the way we know about this...
Or just survival.
Huh?
Or just survive it.
Well, you know, actually, based on archetype, those are the four of what are you going to do? Yeah. And then if you're like if you're in a regression mode, okay, that would be one of your standard basic archetypes, and you would actually be one of those. But if you're running limited programs, fear-based programs, old historic scary victim programs, or whatever you want to call the limited fear-based programs, whatever title you put on them, abuse, neglect, the Edgar Casey Foundation would call, their psychics would call them, you're either going to be run by these, or if these positive things begin to regress, you're going to regress into abandonment. You're going to regress into annihilation. You're going to regress into dependency or rejection. Okay? And so, again, that's energy management. Okay? And we would we would take interesting, fun, productive, inspired, and we would break them out both in energy management, which goes to activities and how you're behaving, and then we would also take those four things, interesting, fun, productive, inspired, and we would just say, get up on the bridge and look at how you act in your day, because not everybody has the skill to be introspective. About 85% of people are E-personalities, and E-personalities push outside themselves to understand information, to gather information. It's kind of like a little steam shovel. They push, and 85% of the people don't believe what's inside themselves. They're not used to valuing that. And it's not a horrible thing. It's just how they process.
What's the A personality? Extrovert?
An extroversionist personality.
Okay.
And it kind of gets, like many things, the definitions of them have gotten quite sloppy and dumbed down over the years. But essentially, an extroversionist personality is a person who gets information and relates to the world outside of themselves, and they believe, often as not, that their behaviors are how they act, their safety, so much of their life is based on what goes on outside of themselves, and they then react to that or interact with that, depending, we'll say wellness or just not wellness. They're going to interact or react to based on what's going on around them, and they believe that's how their behaviors come to be. Okay?
Okay.
Well, in truth, the behaviors come from their values and their belief systems. But let's talk about extroversionist personalities for a second. Think of a steam shovel. And a steam shovel has a little thing on the front that scoops stuff. And I'm the steam shovel, and I'm the person inside the steam shovel. I'm not going to believe me inside the steam shovel. So, for instance, if I had an experience with Dr. Tammy, or I had a balance with Ross Cook, and I went out after it was over, and I felt very different, and I felt very hopeful, and I was excited about what was going on. And again, we're talking about uh, a span of people. They may be 100% extroversionist, or they may be 60-40. They may be, right? I mean, it's a spectrum of extroversionists. They would then leave that appointment, and an extrovert would go to a bunch of people and say, have you ever been to Dr. Tammy? She suggested this. And I feel great. And they would go, you ever tried Qigong? They go, what? Have you ever stretched? And she'd go to the next person, and they'd say, have you ever tried isolation tank? No, I'm talking about this. What do you know about it? I think you need hormone therapy. I don't do that. I work out. I do this and that. I think you need to get a dog. I think however they relate to their world, they're going to dump it, and they don't know anything about the experience the person just had. But if I'm the person who just had that experience inside my steam shovel, what I do is I go to this person, and I don't believe everything they say, but I do believe a little of what they say, and I take my steam shovel scoop and I pull some of that information toward me. And how extreme I am about an extroversionist personality, I may have 15 people that I go to and pull information from, or I may only have one or two. I am going to believe, not that person and not myself, but I'm going to believe that big pile of information that I scooped together from, let's say, 10, 11, 13 sources. And that's what I believe. That's why when you go to a doctor or anybody or somebody tries to sell you something, they give you brochures, they give you testimonials, they give you all of this stuff. It's all based on the E-personality, because they're attempting to become half of your proof sources. The testimonial said, and the video said, and the email said, and the brochure said, and that salesman said, and I asked 3 other people, so of course I'm going to get new windows. I mean, that's how people decide. Okay? No, that's how extroversionist people decide. Okay? Now, that's not bad. What I'm saying is not bad. As a matter of fact, it's the majority of how people decide things. So let's say someone comes to Ross Cook and goes through a balance, and they are afraid of X. What would be an example? We had people who couldn't fly. And they rode a bus to get here to work with me, and then they said, well, I'm going to fly home. We balanced around fear of flying. We balanced around 3 or 4 things. I took them out to the airport, let the planes fly right over their head. They were fine. They got on the plane, flew home, no problem. When they got home, they would have said, "What was thing? I went to Boise and I met this guy, did this thing, lost his fear," and the people would have said, "Did you try Qigong?" Me, I stretch. You know what I mean? I read Dr. Seuss. That's what I do. You know what I mean? It's like, what? Because they would have been attempting to place this into their world in a way they are familiar with gathering information and making decisions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's that, if you're writing a book or a video series or whatever, you want to be some of those proof sources. That's why you put out a bunch of stuff at once instead of one thing, because you want to be a bunch of those proof sources. Why? Because the people, for their own betterment, are more likely to believe it and stay in the system if there's a lot of things telling them that. All right? Mm-hmm. Now, 15% of the people are introverts. Oh my gosh, it's bad to be an introvert. And now it's kind of nouveau to be I'm an I personality. I make my own decisions. Again, people have kind of dumbed down and bastardized the idea of what these whole big ideas and concepts, archetypes are. A good metaphor for being an introversionist personality is a camera. And if I had a camera here right in front of you, and I don't mean just a camera phone, I mean a camera that I could turn the lenses on and change the apertures and stuff. I could take that camera and dial the lenses and the apertures and the speed of the camera to the point where it would be so bright that the camera film or the digital representation would say it's too bright in here to take a photo. Or I could adjust all the adjustments on the camera and make it so dark that the camera couldn't take a photo. An I personality believes what's on the film. And they believe how they've taken it in, and they've dealt with it, and they've dealt with it, and they only believe what's on their film. So if they have an experience with Dr. Tammy, they're going to go out and go, oh, I like that. That worked for me. Now, everything has a strength and everything has a weakness. An E personality, when they go through a change program such as you're going to help them with in hormone therapy or any number of things, and I'm going to help them with balancing, an E personality is going to notice everything around them that changes. They're going to notice people talk to them differently. They're going to notice that the interactions are different. They spend different time doing different things. They're going to really pay a lot of attention to what's happening around them differently. They will tend to not go back within themselves to do whatever you're asking them to do, though. They would show up to a group, but they won't necessarily journey within very comfortably, okay? In my balancing work, they would go out and they'd notice all the differences and they wouldn't journey within. But an I personality will instantaneously go out and balance 5 or 6 times that next day because they're used to going inside and understanding that internal dialogue. Will they notice any changes in their life? No, they won't notice a change. I am an I personality, and I used to tell people.
I'm surprised that only 15% are I personalities.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's fascinating. And again, it's a spectrum, right? It's not 100%,
Right.
99-1. The other thing that's weird about these things is our shadow self, if we're an E, our shadow self is an I. And so we have all the components in us. Okay, if we're an I, we have a E shadow self. So there's a lot going on. This is very involved, and it's cool, and it's for our betterment. But it's important to know how you learn and how you can be supported to continue to make the changes you want to make. It's really important to know that, how you gather information and how you're going to do it, because it's not all going to be the same day. You're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, you're going to have this, you're going to have that, all right? So getting back to where we were a bit ago, saying interesting, fun, productive, and inspired, when I put my feet on the floor in the morning, and let's say I'm a productive person, how many times do you say to somebody, okay, for instance, for you, all right, which one are you? Are you an interesting, fun, productive, or inspired person? Which one?
Me?
Hmm?
I would like to be an inspired person, but I think most of my life I've been a productive person.
Okay, I believe that. I believe that. Okay, so here's a silly little thing. If you leave the house to go shopping or to be with friends or take your son somewhere or to go to the office, what does Brian say to you when you leave the house?
Have fun.
He says have fun, doesn't he? What is Brian?
He's a fun.
He's a fun person, okay? Right? And now, here's a weird thing. To a fun person, in his mind, to say, have a productive day, sounds onerous, like he's sentencing you to 8 hours of toil and chain gang stuff, right?
Yes.
But it's not. That's what you want, right? Right?
Yeah.
That's how you want to be supported.
Even if I go shopping, I want to get a lot done.
Oh, yes. I want to hunt them, and I want to shoot them, and I want to drive them under the car, right, efficiently.
Yeah.
Right? So for Brian, it would be a very uncharacteristic thing to say, but yet to support you, it would be important to know what you are and then say, I love you, have a productive day, right? And you'd be like, woo! He knows who I am, look how empowered I am, right? 1 and 1 is 65 and a half. I'm ready to go, okay? In his mind, now he could say that easily, right? But he doesn't know to say that. And every time he says, have a fun day, right? I do the same thing. My wife is a productive person, and if I say have a great day or a fun day, she thinks he's going to be home playing while I'm out toiling, right? Isn't that right, Tim? Look at you laughing, Tammy.
True. It is so true.
Yeah, it's exactly. That's why my company is called Effective Communication. We know about this stuff because this stuff affects how we can get through our day consistently.
Yeah.
effectively. Okay, here's the other thing. We often ask our people, and an exercise in a book or an exercise on these videos would be, and we'd want to do this just as a singular exercise, is to ask someone, oh, by the way, what are you going to do when you retire? And people say, I'll play video games, or I'll plan trips to go see my kids, or I'll do woodworking, or I'll work in my garden, or I'll plan to work in my garden. All right? So they go to work that day, and let's say they're an interesting person or an inspired person, and they start their day 8:30 to 9:30. They have an appointment that is interesting. They're like, I'm working. Let's say whatever happens at 9:30 isn't interesting. You know what they do? They retire. They go to thinking about their kids or about woodworking or what they're going to do in the garden until another interesting thing comes up. And then they're right back at efficiency, working. The world's working for them. So they start and stop and start and stop and start and stop throughout their day. When in truth, they made a value promise to themselves to be efficient, to do this, to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of violating what they want. Now, if they're really good at it, they just know how to stack interesting thing on interesting thing on interesting thing on interesting thing so that they can stay productive the whole time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Or effective the whole time.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well,
But then people start and stop, and that's a huge moment of frustration throughout their day. So when we start making charts about where people begin to leak, I think this is a brilliant place for them to understand by standing on a bridge and watching how they manage the activities of their day. Are they only wanting to manage activities of inspiration?
okay.
You know,
Define leak. You said about where people begin to leak.
they begin to leak. They begin to say one thing and do another. They begin to get frustrated or stressed.
Inconsistent.
Right? They don't seem to be able to engage, right?
Okay.
Well, how many times is the job you're in represented in one way when in truth your strength is another? Can you do the job? Absolutely. Do you kind of have to change the dialogue or the language of it or the culture of it so that it matches your strength? Because we want people to work in their strength, not in their fifth or sixth level down of behaviors, right? Of quality behaviors. Now, through balancing, we can make them effective in all of those levels of behaviors. Absolutely. We can make them completely congruent in what they accomplish. Yet, at the beginning, it's important to recognize where you're most simply at your strength, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're a productive person, right? You're absolutely a productive person. You get fed by being a productive person.
So where I get frustrated and overwhelmed, is that starting and that stopping when I get distracted by something fun or I get distracted by something interesting? Is that what you're kind of saying?
It could be, yes.
Okay.
Brian shows up and let's go eat crawfish or fish or something like that. It'll be a great time. And you are really getting fed by getting stuff done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to get fed by going to that really cool restaurant, right? Where it rains all the time there and we have fish or whatever. You know, great place. But he's going to get fed there and you're not. Because you're sitting there going, I could be getting that done. Right?
Yeah.
So it's important to know your truths first. Then you can begin working on your truths and explaining effective communication to yourself and partners so that then you support each other at your strengths, not at just, you know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think so if we're talking to someone who's new off the street and they're about to go through some change work, it's important if they're going to, and people are very good at looking at their activities except when there's a fear-based program involved. If it's a scary program, if it's a big limit, they're going to have a hard time noticing it.
I like that term, change work.
Yeah, okay, good.
Just highlighted
So when
that.
they go to do change work, like for instance, if we had 10 sentences about I learn things easily and comfortably, I relax, I do my best, I joyfully do what's important to me. If they had difficult or traumatic experiences involved in one of those areas, and we asked them to read those 10 sentences aloud, when they got to number 8, if that was the one that was based in fear, like let's say in my family background it would be about anger or not being smart enough, I would literally stumble over those words. Or when you said read number 8, I would read number 10.
You've talked about those sentences before. How do you construct those sentences?
Oh, they're all over the place. We have a whole course we teach on how do you construct internal and external power words and linear words with a little NLP built in it about how do I build effective words, and then I have to go back and clear those words. In other words, how do I really know it's happening for me? A lot of times people just don't know what the ultimate win for them would be. And they have facets of their personality, facets of their communication systems that are actually being like the anchor being dragged behind the parade, you know? And some of it is neuro-linguistic programming stuff, some of it is deeper than that and is behavioral and fear-based. But essentially, there are disconnects. That's a good way to explain it. There are disconnects when you go to do change work. There are disconnects at levels that will just jump up and interrupt. For example, we're talking about internal and external people. We are all external and internal. We both do that. We process internally. We process externally. Every one of us does it. If we go to put this in NLP language, and believe me, it doesn't cover it all, but just let's talk about NLP for a second, neuro-linguistic programming. You would say visual, auditory, or kinesthetic external, or visual, auditory, kinetic internal, right? Well, we assume we're equally good at all those. I can guarantee we're not. And as a matter of fact, if we go back and we learn about that and we take you through exercises with that, I did a demonstration one time in a seminar, there are areas that we just don't have programs. And when someone communicates it to us in that modality, we don't think it's bad. We think they're calling us names. I did a demonstration in front of about 12 therapists one time, and one lady really wanted to be in the demonstration, and so I took her through this exercise. We wrote out all these quality sentences that included external, internal, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic modalities. And when we got to, I don't know, let's say internal auditory, she couldn't come up with any relationship to internal auditory. And when I asked her about it kindly 3 or 4 times, she got furious, angry and furious in front of the whole room. And it was a 2-day workshop. So the next day, she brings her boss, who owns the therapy unit, and she said, put him up there and do it with him that you did with me yesterday. And when she watched it, she said, oh, now I realize, because he had holes in his communication model also. And when she said, oh my goodness, I thought you were calling me stupid. I thought you were angry at me when you were asking me questions that I didn't have any modality there. I just didn't have any history there. And if I did have history there, it was confrontive and ugly and limited and angry history. And how did she act about it? She immediately got furious about it. It had nothing to do with it. And what we were doing, it just, her modality was wrong, right? And we went back subconsciously and empowered each of those modalities, made sentences, and then empowered each of those modalities, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, went to the deepest level of her subconscious mind and made that completely congruent. Then we went to internal visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and we made each of those modalities completely congruent. What that means in her life now is somebody can show up and talk really fast externally, or she can read, or however she's going to process. Someone can show up with all these different modalities, and she can stay calm, peaceful, and empowered in her own values and not feel limited or attacked or angry. She can process her wellness, her knowledge, her understanding. She can be whole in front of all these different modalities, when in truth, before that experience, she just probably didn't have anything to do with those people, and if she did, that's where the majority of confrontation in her life came from.
So you,
From those people.
so you said this is a whole course that you teach. I think it's still seeming a little bit kind of amorphic to me, but I think it's something that's really interesting that could be helpful to people. How can we help people come up with their own words or their own sentences? And
oh yeah, the reason I stopped teaching this one, Tammy, though, is because eventually some of those words were really scary. So we'll have to do a better job, a weller job, of supporting them if we do this.
Okay.
Because you mean like getting with them, having another video that follow up, or have a group dynamic conversation or something. Because what will happen is they'll just stop. They'll run into a value glitch and they'll just stop.
So what's this process called?
I don't know. It's just an element of balancing that we do about internal processing and external languaging.
Internal processing.
Again, another facet of effective communication.
Well, the only thing that I kind of have any frame of reference for this is I made up a list of all my limiting beliefs one time. I mean, you can make a list of your fears. Mine were my limiting beliefs. I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. And so that was my. Is that similar?
The process we're talking about is would be a process we could take any one of those limiting beliefs through. Okay? I don't know if you want me to do it now, but it's just a piece of many courses we teach. An example would be, and I'll do it real quickly, and I don't have to do it real quickly, at some point you may want me to explain the whole thing as in a course.
Yeah, well, I don't know if we want to have that as part of this book, or if you want to have another book that we could write.
Yeah, this could be a part of another book. Okay. But maybe as we explain this comes down, it would be good to have this. Okay, so I'm not smart enough. Okay? If I were indeed smart enough, what would I hear? What would I see myself doing? I'm going to do visual internal. If I was smart enough, what would be the pictures I would see inside my head, and how would I be seeing the world from inside my eyes?
Oh, okay. This is good.
If I were smart enough, how would I hear myself talking, and how would I hear others talking to me inside my head? What would my inner dialogue be like? If I were smart enough, what would my body feel like? And how would I be moving my body through space internally?
So is this taking it to the nth degree of, if I were smart enough, I would write a book? If I were
what it's going to do is it's going to encompass kind of like building a fence around where your fears would have been. Normally in balancing, if I'm sitting there in front of you, I just go at a value and I attack the value and wipe it out, bam, right? Change it, right? Well, that's harder to do if I'm not sitting there, right? Because that's based on your subconscious mind sharing information with my subconscious mind and my intuition, right? This way, this is at least a model that they could use. Okay, so externally, if I'm not smart enough, what would I, when I am smart enough, and I am smart enough, did I do the first part like I am smart enough, or if I'm not smart enough? What should I do?
You did. So visual is, what would I see if I were smart enough?
Okay, so now okay, that's internal. So now I'm going to do visual external. If I were smart enough, what would I see around me? I might see a nicer house. I might see a bunch of books. I might see after my name, doctorate, or this book, or this alphabet alphabet soup or whatever, right? What might I see? I might see myself looking at an ocean. Okay? If I were smart enough, how would I hear people talking around me? What would they be saying to each other when I'm there? What would they be saying to me? Which is a little bit of a similarity to how I described it before, but it's going on out there and I'm a part of it as opposed to it's like inside me, right?
Okay.
Externally, what would they be saying? And externally, what would we be doing? What would they be doing and what would we be doing together if I were smart enough? Okay, so if we were to do that, and then we were to put you in a balance or have you work through basic balances, I'm not smart enough, histories would all crop up, but they would all crop up within that categorization of how we process communication. Right?
Mm-hmm. And that's all.
And we can then make a sentence from a little like from this thing and that thing and that thing and that thing and that thing, and then we balance that sentence and they would all turn on. So no matter how internally or externally things came to you, you would then feel smart enough based on what's going on. Okay?
And this is
and
all.
That's how you do it.
This is all subconscious type stuff, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And you want to really support people during this because they're going to bring up some really scary stuff when you're doing this. Just like that lady got mad at me when she was trying to process one of the modalities where she didn't really have much success or program saying she's capable in that area. She didn't hear, oh, I'm not capable of this and I think I'll learn it. She heard she was an idiot, right? And there's no way she was an idiot. She's a very intelligent, wonderful person. But she just didn't have any of that communication module, essentially, within herself. Okay? Or every time that had happened in her history of that module being turned on, it had been really bad. And so maybe her parents were that module dominant of communication and they didn't understand.
I saw a graphic yesterday that was of a brain, and it was kind of showing that 88% of your processing is subconscious and 10% is conscious. Do you think that's a fair percentage breakdown?
I would say 70-30, but yeah. Yes.
Really? Even, okay. Because that's generous to be 30% conscious processing.
Way too generous, probably.
Okay.
I'm just trying to stay in the middle a little bit since we're going to start publishing stuff. But I believe that concept of when they're talking about the limbic system being 2/3 your brain, and so we decide with that part of our brain, but it's emotional, and it doesn't have words. I believe that number absolutely.
So here's kind of, again, I'm kind of getting really left brain thinking here on how to, because this is all great information, but how
You're
do,
the dude and I'm the girl, right?
yeah, right.
I remember.
How do we dissect this down? And so really, I'm kind of thinking what would be an interesting approach would be to talk about that, to talk about the breakdown of the subconscious and the conscious, and the stuff that I sent you yesterday or day before is really conscious engineering. It's conscious thinking. But a lot of what we're doing here is kind of that stuff you just described. We're using conscious engineering to construct that. And then we have this subconscious stuff, which is what we do with balancing. And so really we're approaching the whole brain. I mean, that's kind of in a nutshell, this whole
And I think
brain.
we should explain the limbic system. I think we should explain how we decide. Okay? And what's that guy's name? Schultz or something? He gives a great TED talk on how we decide and why the why is so important when we describe things, because we live a bit of a lie. We're taught a bit of a lie out in the world. He says that the outside circle is kind of the features and the elements. The next circle in is the benefits as to why we should, the benefits of doing something. And the middle circle, and it's a bad model because the middle's smaller. It should actually be the big one, but He says the middle, the people who really make a difference, the people who are exceptional in the world, don't talk to the elements and the benefits. The people who are great in the world talk to the why. And if we're going to have a great Slayer book, we have to always be talking about the why.
Yeah.
In the videos, in the book, and the everything. You know, Martin Luther King didn't say, I have a plan. He said, I have a dream. Because people will get behind a dream.
An outcome. We're selling an outcome.
Huh?
We're selling an outcome.
Yeah.
We're not selling, we're selling the destination, not the plane.
Yeah, absolutely. And why would you even go? Because their why is whispering to them emotionally and helping them make decisions all the time. You know? Why did I buy that car and not that car? It didn't feel right. And yet, everybody's going to tell us that, you know, you better buy it because your golf clubs look good in the trunk. You better buy it because it's a good color. That's not why we buy it. We buy it because it connects to a why, a deep why of who we think we are, what we want to be, or whatever. Why would I decide at whatever age to begin to change? Because there's some big source of emotion in me that's saying, I just don't want to, do this again and fail. I don't want to, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, my body's starting to let me down, my mind's starting to let me down. Why would I do that? Why now, and why would I go with you? Okay, because we understand the whole thing. That's why you would go with us. We can make a change like this. Bam. We can make the vitamins you're taking and the hormones you're taking 100% more effective. You know, I mean, we can do the healing before the healing. We can get you ready for anything that's in your life that's critically important today that you're going to pump a bunch of energy and caring and character into. We can make it more effective. That's why. Because your decisions are coming from your subconscious mind. And people don't know about that process. They don't know that their values determine why they're going to do something and why they're not going to do something. And they don't understand that their values are cluttered with pain. We've just been encoding, and we're cluttered with limit and pain and difficulty and challenge, right? When really we're trying to turn on a great program of connection and love and sharing. And I have to learn to find another example because most people haven't seen Old Yeller anymore. You know, I mean, they haven't had a doggy die or a parent get sick or something. It's a challenge. You know, we turn on unconditional love and we think it's only going to be kittens and fuzziness, and it's not. It's going to have pain. There's been difficulty with people we love. There's been challenges and hurt. And when we energize that whole program and value, we get everything. We get the limit and the pain. So in balancing, we have to clarify those values so that we can clean them, so that when I turn on productivity and it's supported by my values, I can trust what's going to come out of that. It's not just going to lead me to another pattern where I do great and then I cycle back and I limit again.
Will you say that one more time?
Which part?
It's so good. And I know I follow the process, but I can't articulate it back.
So about values.
Yeah,
we're
values.
talking about values.
Yeah.
Talking about values that are like a cup. You know, and we believe that it's a really good, this is a good value. This is unconditional love, or this is kindness. And I turn it on, and I believe that it's going to only give me goodness. It's not. It's going to be full of pain in history, or times when I thought I needed love and I got powered, or a time I thought I needed kindness and people weren't kind to me. And it's all in that program associatively. So when I turn it on, I think it's only going to be good. When I find out, well, first I have to learn that my value makes my behavior. Then I go bitching and I'm going to turn on my program, and then I think it's going to only be goodness, puppies, kittens, and stuff like that, and greatness and great connections. It's not, because it's also going to energize the fear of the limit and the injury. And that's where people will have behavioral patterns where they go, and then they cycle back to a limit. They get right close to the edge of everything they wanted, and they cycle back. For instance, in losing weight. Let's say they dated a bunch of people and were what they would quote-unquote call happy, fun, and promiscuous a little bit, but that doesn't fit their model as now I am the role of a parent. So when they go to get in shape and they start looking good and they start getting abs on them and they start getting cut and they start feeling more vibrant and strong in their life, and people start looking at them differently and they start looking at people differently, Their program in the past goes, you remember what you did back then when you were that shape? You remember when those relations were? And they go, well, it's more valuable for me to be a parent than it is for that. And all of a sudden they're drinking beer and they can't find their way to the gym. They're drinking beer at midnight, and they can't find their way to the gym. That is an unconscious choice based on a value where we can clean that value about character and morality and commitment and love, and then they can have those people look cute to them and they look cute back while they get cut and while they get in shape and while they learn to run, and they're only going to be more in love with what they're in love with, and they're only going to be stronger in their character rather than energizing a fear or a limit. Okay?
Yeah.
So it's vitally important that we know the difference when we do that. When we go to pump up a value, our behavioral patterns come from somewhere. They come from the limited histories based inside our values. And so we have to cleanse those values to move forward. So if I then say I want to be productive, and my values are unconditional love, faith, kindness, and selflessness, and I pump up those values into production, I can trust production. Why? Because it's based on these values.
And how does somebody list their values? Is there like a table of values that we can give people to choose from?
I think there is. I think we can give 600 words and then cut it down to 200 words and then cut it down to 20 words or 40 words and get it down to 20 or 30 words, and we have exercises that will do that. The other thing right off the top is people often say they know their values, and really what they know is they know what their values aren't. So if your value is, I don't like that in these people. I don't like that in myself. What value's there? What's going on? And we work through that. And so we find out what the limit is, because there's so much negativity and limit in this world. Then they know what it isn't. Then we say, what would it be in its opposition? Or what would be 3 or 4 things that would be it, completely opposite of that limit? And now you're close to a causal value.
Okay, when you say we work through that to find what that is, how can we do that without really engaging with people that they can find out what their own words are? What
we have a bunch of exercises. We would take them through exercises like, what would this give you if this did this? What do you really want?
Do you have those exercises like written down somewhere, or is it just in your head?
I probably have them in transcription somewhere. Otherwise, we can do them and transcribe them. I probably have them in transcription somewhere.
Because that's pretty important.
Oh, it's critically important.
Okay.
My daughter Megan said, Dad, you can sit in front of somebody and hold them still when they start to fluctuate about values. And she's been balancing most of her life, and she freaks out when it comes to values, because she says, I'm fine while you're sitting there, and the minute I'm away from you, I get to a value that's maybe has some fear built in it, and it's stuck, and she goes, I can't think about it. And so I stop. I quit. I go do something else. And so the idea of building a quality value connected to that is really, really important. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a big piece of having a quality value. Even in this book, in the Healing Before the Healing, knowing your values is a cornerstone of what we do in balancing.
Okay.
And it's a good exercise because it has a lot of room consciously, right?
Yeah. So you say you've got it written down somewhere. Is it like sort of accessible? Is it like in a file cabinet? Is it?
I would have to. What I do is I get out my. I'm going to sound like I'm in the 1970s or something. That's modern to me. I'm going to get out I could get out my thumb drives and my backups, hard drive backups, and I could search it and see if I have them.
Okay. Can you do that?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay. Send me whatever you got.
Okay.
Otherwise, maybe our next call, what I'll do is just have you kind of walk me through the process and we'll recreate it. But
that would be great.
If you can find it, that would be at least,
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Excellent. We're almost at your time limit, right?
Oh, yeah, I got to go. Okay, yeah, try to find that. If you can't, then next time we'll pick up with, we'll just go through the exercise. Because there's so much, and I think that there will be so much when we get this kind of online and build this out, that there will be value to people working with not just you, because we want to scale this, so, but the people that you've trained or the people that you are going to train. So there will be value in them working with those people. But as much as we can get them to do on their own.
Here's a little model. Let me give you just a little piece that would be a little module, not a model. Do people move towards something or do they move away from something? And people all say they move toward things. They don't.
No.
They only move away from things. And so that would be, we could put a little module together that would say, the purpose of this is to identify which you do, and we're not going to give you noogies if it's one or the other. We don't care. What we do care about is we care that you know how you do it so that we can use that as like a highway to dialogue with you better as we attempt to find fears and help you clean your life up.
Okay.
Grow your wellness, change your wellness. Okay?
Cool. All right.
That could be a little simple module. So some of these things might be little just breakout modules that, okay, you have to go through 1 through 7, in order to get to here.
I love it. Yep. I love that idea. And I love the idea of writing a book, but I love the idea of having modules that go with it and that people can do on their own. That's beautiful. That's where selling a book is great, or having a book for your credibility, but having a program that people can do, I think
we can come out with them pretty simultaneously. I think it's vitally important we do. I mean, and whether it happens or whether it's just a dream I point at, Brian saying we're going to do this thing about weight loss and this and that. I think there's a lot of things that have to happen. I think, the hormone therapy, the this, the that. But I think the other thing that has to happen is you have to have your belief systems aligned.
Yes. Yes, absolutely you do. I completely believe that. I wouldn't be working on this.
I want to have a book and a series of this is how you do it basically, pointed at that. And so we're doing the same thing. I love it.